right, good evening. Opening Board of Selectmen meeting June 4th, 2018 at 6 p.m. at the Rutland Public Library. Thank you all for joining us. We will open with the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Could I have a motion to sign Treasury Warrant 25 and payroll?
Make a motion to sign Treasury Warrant 25 and payroll.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous. We have 4 sets of meeting minutes. Could I have a motion for Monday, May 21st?
I will make a motion that the board accept the minutes as presented from the meeting on Monday, May 21st.
Thank you.
Second.
Is there any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Unanimous. Monday, April 23rd.
Motion to approve Monday, April 23rd.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And if you don't mind, Jeff, I'm gonna have you abstain.
Abstain.
3 ayes, 2 abstentions. For April 26th,
We have to abstain because we weren't here.
Skip, do you mind making that motion under rule of necessity?
Oh, I don't even have it here. Motion to accept minutes April 26th through the, necessity.
I'll second rule of necessity. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. 2 ayes.
Abstain.
Abstain. And April 30th, 7 p.m. Could I have a motion on the left?
I'll do that one.
Thank you.
I move we accept the minutes from April 30th, 2018 under rule of necessity as presented.
I'll second that.
Thank you. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
2 ayes, 3 abstentions. And final, May 12th, 5:30 p.m. at Glenwood Elementary School.
Motion to accept April 12th, elementary school.
Oh, that's May.
I mean, May 12th. Yeah, whatever.
I don't have May 12th. I see it.
Get a second.
I'll second.
Thank you. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. 3 ayes, 2 abstentions.
Abstain.
Thank you very much. And we'll go straight into our appointments for the evening at 6 p.m. And Gary is going to make a little introduction, but we had Fred Sivian here from the DEP.
Good evening. We have tonight with us Fred Sivian from DEP and Hillary Lacranola from Weston and Sampson in Engineering. And it is to bring or give you folks more facts over the new stormwater regs that I've been talking about for the last several months. Just briefly, I attended a seminar, learning session with Fred Sivian from DEP and others, as well as about 20 or 30 communities from Central and Western Mass. So these are the regs, and that do go into effect July 1st unless all appeals are not exhausted. So the possibility exists that that may happen. I'm kind of doubtful about that. But July 1st, as of July 1st, we'll have to file, or we have 90 days to file for NOI to get the stormwater game rolling. Again, this is a 5-year permitting process. Initially started in 2003. The 5 years was up in 2008. And what we've done is pretty much mirrored that permitting process that's due May 1st of every year. So I'm not going to take up Fred's 27 minutes along with Hillary, and he will bring you up to snuff, hopefully, and you can understand it a lot better than what I've explained. So I have Fred and Hillary. Thank you.
Madam Chair. Thank you. Appreciate this evening coming here. My name is Fred Sivian. I work for Mass DEP, which means I work for you. I'm the Massachusetts Stormwater Coordinator. My job is to answer people's questions about federal, state, and local stormwater rules. I have a few minutes of prepared remarks, have some information about this new permit, and then we wanted to open it to questions for you folks. We present this first. Anyone here who would like basically on one side is is there concern about MS4 permits nationwide. MS4 stands for Municipal Separate Storm Sewer System. It's basically storm water systems that towns commonly have in Massachusetts. The rules for these stormwater systems have been in effect at the national level since the 1990s. Boston and Worcester were the first two municipalities to have stormwater rules attached to them. Since 2003, 240 Massachusetts towns, the larger of the Massachusetts towns, have been operating their stormwater systems under this permit. The permit is issued by EPA. It's a permit to discharge into the surface waters of the United States. The personal one, I've been around since the first Earth Day. I remember going to the first Earth Day. At that time, about a third of the nation's rivers and streams were swimmable and fishable. Now about 2/3 of our rivers and streams are swimmable and fishable. And that's in large part due to the work we've done reducing pollution from the relatively small number of large pipes, wastewater treatment facilities, and industrial facilities. We've reduced the amount of pollutants coming from those. But when federal and state officials look at rivers and streams, surface waters, we find that they're still not swimmable and fishable. They don't meet federal and or state stormwater standards. And we found that the most common pollutant are the pollutants that you find in stormwater. These are pollutants that are on roofs and roads, sidewalks, parking lots, and they get very efficiently washed into our catch basins. And because these stormwater systems don't have any treatment within them, whatever gets put in the catch basins goes right into our rivers and streams. So that's basically, on a national level, the reason why we have these stormwater rules. The main difference between this 2003 permit that you've been operating under and the new permit is the level of specificity. The existing permit has, depending on how you count them, about 36 requirements in it. The new permit, it's slated to take effect on July 1st, has, depending on how you count them, over 200 specific requirements. Well, it used to say general things like make sure that you prohibit illicit discharges, pollutants from going into your stormwater system. You're only supposed to have stormwater going into the stormwater system. Instead, this new permit has pages and pages of specific requirements. On the obverse of the handout I provided to you, there's information about, it basically says it's not just DPW anymore. The permit calls out specific parts of town government as having a role in this MS4 permit. So what many towns are doing is starting to put together the municipal team that they'll need in order to meet these permit requirements. For example, there's our new federal rules in the MS4 permit that require stormwater to be retained on site. Your Conservation Commission has been doing that for decades, but the rules that are in this MS4 permit are different than the rules that your Conservation Commission's been using. So you're gonna have to do some work to true those up. The other handout I have here is basically a summary of the major requirements. It shows that the requirements do not all hit at the same time. In other words, July 1st comes, the permit takes effect. The first thing that towns need to do is to be able to file an application, a notice of intent for coverage under the permit. That's due within 90 days after July 1st. The major piece, the deliverable that's required by the permit in the first year is a stormwater management plan. And that's basically the blueprint that towns will use to be able to show EPA and anybody else who asks how you're meeting the requirements of the permit. It's also a way that the towns can use to be able to cost out what the increases in costs are going to be to the town. One of the hazards of having me at a group like this is that I can talk about stormwater all night. So why don't I just hold here, stop talking, and see if there are any questions through the chair, of course. And then I've got this other handout to give you too.
I mean, I think obviously the first question that's probably in a lot of people's minds is cost. You just ended with that. Do you have any sense for the community our size what we're looking at in terms of cost?
I don't. I do know that the EPA has a pretty complex spreadsheet that towns can use in order to calculate what the costs are going to be. We have a DEP's been working with Worcester Polytechnic Institute. We had a class of students that took the EPA spreadsheet And they costed out for a couple of towns, and the towns did their own cost estimate, and they were pretty close together. So regarded as a pretty good estimate. But it depends on the number of road miles you have, number of outfalls.
What are the chances of the appeal getting an extension on the July 1 date? Slim to none at this point?
I really don't know. The permit was supposed to take effect last year on July 1st. There was a request that came in, including some towns from central Massachusetts, to delay the permit. And EPA granted the postponement of the permit. Some of those same interests about 2 weeks ago made the same request to EPA, and EPA said, no, we're not going to postpone it. They're going to have July 1st. So that's the when. There's a question of what. And I do know that the EPA and the interests that have appealed the permit are doing mediation right now, and I don't know what the result of that is going to be. So our advice from DEP is for towns to be ready, be nimble enough to be able to go with the permit. Most of the issues that have come up in the permit have not been requirements in the first year of the permit.
Filing starts July 1st,
It can start that earlier. They're due at the end of September.
due at the end of September. And how long do we have to meet the 200-plus specific requirements?
Well, it depends. Why don't I,
Okay. I've moved you on. And I think Hillary had a couple of answers.
I do have some answers.
go right ahead.
And we might have more questions.
So Weston and Sampson has been helping the town to try to Weston and Sampson has been helping the town to try to prepare for this permit. We've been talking about it for a really long time. So we've taken the spreadsheet that EPA has prepared and tried to estimate what Rutland's require, or what Rutland's action items are going to be to fit into those requirements, because every community is a little bit different in some of the things that they already do to comply with some of these things, and the different departments that work on things. For example, catch basin cleaning is a requirement, but you do some of that already, and street sweeping is a requirement, but you do some of that already. So we have gone through and created a spreadsheet that itemizes all the permit requirements and assigned an estimated dollar value to them. And when I say estimated, we provided a range. It's based on, the sort of bare bones approach versus the, having to hire out to do everything. Obviously, that isn't going to be the case, but until we sit down and do the stormwater management plan, it's hard for us to figure out exactly what the costs are going to be. So we have a range of costs that have been prepared. Do you want me to share them? Or would you rather look at them separately?
No, I just share through the chair. Bad news first, right?
They know. Sorry.
While you're preparing that, are there any communities out there that are so far ahead of the game that this July 1st possibility of opening up really isn't affecting them too much?
No, I would not. In my estimation, in the communities that I've spoken with, everybody's pretty much in the same boat. They have done these types of thought process evaluations, but they haven't really gotten a big jump on the actual action items because things have been up in the air. They've been working under the existing permit and doing their minimum control measures that were required under the 2003 permit.
Okay.
And they've continued to do that, but they haven't really done a whole lot of branching out, with the exception that I've seen a lot of communities establishing a stormwater utility. That is something that takes a long time for a community to establish, and there's quite a bit of thought that needs to go into it so that it makes sense and it's the right choice for the town, and that everybody buys into it and votes for it at town meeting. So there's a lot of education and there's a lot of planning that goes into that. So I have seen a lot of communities that have done the initial stages of utility planning. And maybe you have more to add to that. No?
Yeah, I think just setting up a stormwater enterprise fund is what it does is use impervious surface as a way of measuring the relative contribution to the stormwater runoff that a business or a residence would make. You know how much you use. If you have water bills, that's based on the amount of water. If you happen to have sewer, you know how much it's based on the amount of sewer. It's with stormwater, use impervious surface as a placeholder for that. So a large commercial entity with a lot of impervious surface puts more stormwater runoff into the town system than a smaller one. So fees are based accordingly.
So there's a little bit of planning and evaluation that goes along with setting something that like that up that fits for your community. So for costs, we put together ranges for the 10 years of the permit, and the total could be as much as 1.5 million to 2.2 million over the course of the 10 years. The ranges are about 150,000 to 300,000 every year, give or take.
Thank you.
Anything else?
Is there any,
Can I ask a question?
could you, you have to do name and address. Thank you. You could do this one. There's one right there.
Well, I'm here now.
Okay.
Carol Martens, 127 Pleasantdale. 2 questions. Are there grants? That's one question that might be able to get, I don't know if Margaret knows anything. And also, when we're talking about that money per year, ton of money, are we paying any of that already? Like, if it's 150 a year, are we already paying 75 for the current permit?
So as far as grant money goes, there are there have been grant opportunities for managing stormwater, installing best management practice devices and things like that. There's, to my knowledge, nothing new to help us deal with this permit. These are all grant programs that have existed for quite some time, and they usually have very specific parameters and timeframes. I'll let you jump in more after I answer your second question, which is yes, some of it, which is why we've provided ranges. Some of the activities that are required in this permit are already done in the day-to-day operations of the DPW and the Conservation Commission and things like that, which is why the Stormwater Management Plan will assign roles. It will also identify what some of the funding that may come from existing capital budgets and operating budgets that you already do every day. And that's why the range is there. So it's likely that any additional activity will cost less than the ranges that I've provided. If that makes sense.
And as far as grants go, been a little over $1.3 million since 2012 that have come from the state and from DEP, mostly for stormwater coalitions, not to individual towns, but to groups of towns. The Stormwater Coalition is a group of municipal officials who voluntarily get together, try to pool their resources to figure out how they can do better stormwater management at less cost. The Central Massachusetts was the first one to start up. The first one also received grant from Community Innovation Challenge Grant at the time. So that's the way DEP has been helping, is trying to get groups of towns to work together. There are 10 coalitions right now with about 140 towns in them. So that's one way that DEP has been helping. A second way, we awarded 3 grants this last year that will help for requirements of the permit. One was $200,000 grant to the statewide coalition. There are 10 regional coalitions. There's a statewide coalition to develop educational materials, common educational materials that can be used across the Commonwealth to be able to educate people about stormwater. It's sort of a lot of people don't understand what a stormwater system is. In my town of Dedham, Joe Flanagan, DPW head, popped catch basins in my neighborhood and found a whole bunch of blue bags from people's dog poop there. And it wasn't they were trying to be nefarious. It's they know that there's a storm system there. They've heard the word sewer associated with it, so they think there must be some treatment in it, right? Well, there isn't, and it goes right to the Charles River. But so that kind of educational effort. We also granted $50,000 to the Pioneer Valley Planning Commission for work on the redevelopment rules. There's the federal redevelopment rules say that you can do off-site mitigation, do off-site stormwater improvements instead of having all the improvements be on-site when you're doing the redevelopment. permit didn't say how, and the purpose of this is to figure out how. Again, this may be over the edge of detail, I apologize.
Anybody?
Well, discussion.
Absolutely.
So I assume that this applies to all, 351 towns in the Commonwealth?
It applies to towns that have so-called urbanized area in them. So it's about 260 towns. 260 towns were named by EPA in 2016. 14 of those towns have waivers because the population inside the urbanized area of the town was small enough. I looked at, some of Rutland is inside the urbanized area and some is not. So these rules apply just inside the urbanized area. So, for example, there's a rule that says you have to have a special plan if you have a transfer station in your town. If the transfer station is inside the urbanized area, you have to do it. If it's outside, you don't have to. But it's about 240 towns.
So I'm just trying to gather this all in, because I'm
Yeah.
relatively new. Bear with me, just a simple guy. So it's not like Rutland is suddenly having a problem with the stormwater. We're seeing a lot more stormwater. What we're seeing is a lot more regulation coming down at us at the hands of EPA, you're saying, right?
Yes.
Now, is the EPA offering us any relief other than 170 more regulations?
They do not have any funds available. There's a lot of technical assistance on how to do it.
Assistance. And now we have to come out with $150,000 a year to keep up with their regulations. So my question is, what's our options? What's the town's options to Big Brother here?
You have a couple of options. One, I guess, hypothetical. I'm a planner, so I deal in hypothetical options. One hypothetical option, when you're faced with the knowledge that there's pollution from stormwater coming into your local rivers and streams, is to go ahead and do what the permit requires, plan how to do that. That's one option. Another option, a second option, would be to do what you think you can minimally do and try to figure out if there are parts of the permit that you're, frankly, not going to comply with. That has a liability risk for the town. The other hypothetical option would be just not do what the permit requires. The problem with that last approach, and the second approach for that matter, is that EPA is really good at using its computer systems to figure out which towns have applied. For example, they know that there were 9 towns that didn't submit their annual report last year, and they're going after those towns. There may end up being fines if they can't work something out. It's not just the fines, though. If you get into legal trouble, usually what happens is an administrative consent order. That's a legally enforceable mechanism that requires you to meet permit terms. If you have an administrative consent order, you've just lost your local flexibility to be able to shift funds, move around, possibly not do so much in one area, do a little bit less than the other. Those are all choices that 248 other towns are facing right now.
So I'm looking at the schedule, and I know, Hillary, you've kind of worked this out. 1 year after the effective date, that doesn't look like, and you tell me, it doesn't look like a $150,000 a year to me.
Nope.
So there's stormwater management plans, which we've been working on.
Yeah.
There's the sanitary sewer overflow, which we need to do for ourselves to start to save money no matter what, and we know you're about to begin another round. And then 2 other sets of written procedures that I'm assuming we're gonna try to do best practice and not reinvent the wheel with.
Right, exactly. So we've estimated that for year 1, your cost could range from 62,000 to 95,000.
Okay.
It's a good question. I'm going to turn to the second page here under 3 years.
Yeah. Yeah, it certainly gets worse fast, but
Towns must have completed all dry weather field sampling. What that is basically, if you got, and if it hasn't rained for a while, and you've got flow inside in your outfalls, it's not stormwater, it's something else, and it may be something that isn't causing any problems, but it could be illicit discharges. The reason I'm pointing out that requirement that says it needs to be completed in the 3rd year, you have a choice about whether to start it in year 1 or 2 or 3.
it's interesting they didn't even mention it. Suggest starting.
Yeah. And there are, we can be creative about how we get things done. I mean, sampling costs are sampling costs, but I mean, do we have summer interns do them instead of hiring a consultant? These are the things that, we have some flexibility and some options to be creative.
You can have the EPA come down and do it. They're the ones that are telling us to do it,
Or
right?
Eagle Scouts. We love the Eagle Scouts looking for a project, something like that. Those are great opportunities.
Is WPI that you know of offering anything with their students in terms of outreach to the local communities in Worcester County?
I'm not sure about WPI specifically, but it's certainly worth a look into, but UMass Lowell definitely does. UMass Lowell has a great stormwater program where they have partnered with communities to do things like that during the summer,
Wow.
the
okay.
stream teams.
I'm looking at the 5 years after effective date, and I'm not sure who would answer this. There's specific towns subject to specific things that I'm assuming we are not eligible for or required to do. Obviously, Cape Cod nitrogen, Assabet River, out of state. None of those match us, and I'm interested to see that there's nothing on here about Quabbin or Wachusett watersheds. We were not given anything in excess of what everybody else has to do.
No, the only way that you would, and I have it in here, but it'll take me a minute to flip through it. But if you are if you have impaired waters within your urbanized area, and the DEP has designated certain requirements for those impaired waters, you will have to take additional measures to comply with those specific requirements.
Is that the lake pond phosphorus?
Yeah,
Okay.
things like that.
Do we know, either of you, our urbanized area, does it pretty much coincide with our sewer district? Or is it larger than that?
It does. It's larger than the sewer system, but like the sewer system's pretty much this. So it goes down to, in a strip down, all the way down Maple Ave to the Paxton border.
Okay. So it's almost like they created conservative margins.
And it's based on population. I mean,
Okay.
it's kind of, it's where the most populous portions of your town are.
Oh, it's
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
So the board through the chair, the board has a packet of sample bylaws that Weston and Sampson has prepared for the town's future adoption. There are 3 sample bylaws or draft bylaws governing stormwater management. The first is post-construction of new developments and redevelopments. The next is illicit connections and discharges to the storm drain system. And the third is land disturbance, construction, site runoff control. And finally, in your packet is an illicit discharge detection and elimination protocol document. All 4 of these, in some way, shape, or form, are referred to bylaws. The adoption of bylaws and the adoption of procedures are referred to in the major requirements. So these are going to have to be addressed. The first reference to these, and this is probably a question for Hillary or Fred. The first reference is that these should be done 1 year. So by June 30th, 2019, the town needs to adopt the illicit discharge detection and elimination program description and procedures. So there's a little bit of time to work on these, but these really should be planned for adoption no later than next spring. That's the way I'm reading it.
Yes, and yet at the end of year 1, there's the written illicit discharge program. There's also changes for the construction project management. That it's an example of, as DEP said in its comments to EPA when they were drafting the permit, it's an example of an administrative load to the towns that, in our view, was not directly connected to reduction of pollution from stormwater. There are things in this permit that are you could call them 1 step or 2 steps away from reducing pollution from stormwater. If you were able, you can look at DEP's comments, and I think if you looked at them, you'd find some consistency between DEP's comments and some of the comments in the appeal that are happening right now.
Tell us about this appeal.
The appeal, there were 5 appellants, City of Lowell, Town of Franklin, a group from Central Massachusetts, and the Conservation Law Foundation and the Center for Regulatory Reasonableness. It's somebody's shop to try to basically take on whatever regulations don't make sense to him. And the EPA is working with them in mediation right now to try to figure out if there's a common area for what should be in the permit. The EPA answered the question about when the permit's going to start by saying July 1st. The question is what should be in it. All of those interests have the right to be able to ask the court to intervene, because they could ask the court to intervene and delay things again. They could ask the court to get rid of some parts of the permit. The court could decide that the entire permit's going in as scheduled. The court could make some other decision too. There's no way any of us can know. But it's a difficult situation for a town, because you have to be nimble enough to deal with the start of the permit as it's written, but be able to change if it turns out that there's some different court decisions.
Through the chair, I have another question. So,
Yes, ma'am.
the adoption of the bylaws and the adoption of the IDDE protocol, that's not it. That's not the end of it. Then the planning board may have to look at its subdivision rules and regulations, and then a conservation commission may have some regulations that need to be changed. So it's going to be widespread throughout town boards and committees.
Which is why the first handout I gave you has a header on it that says it's not just DPW anymore. A lot of towns have been handling this permit by having all the work basically done by DPW folks. This permit specifically calls on other parts of town government to do work too. So it's a team effort. It's a group.
Best practice-wise, have you seen communities that already have this type of committee in place where multiple departments are working together for stormwater? Is that something that we can look to?
Yes, actually I was in the town of Paxton about 3 weeks ago. Their Conservation Commission is putting together a stormwater committee, a smaller town than here, but they're doing that. The other thing to do, I think, is to reach out to the Stormwater Coalition that's in your area and to see if there are other towns that are willing to share what their practices are.
Okay. Just maybe my last question. Could you comment, just big picture, on, we have water conversations coming up in 2 days. Can you comment on how this will help, if it will help, the town of Rutland and its residents in terms of stormwater? What will it do for them directly? Because they're all going to be asking, this money is going to come out of their pockets.
Right. It's hard as someone who is a former elected official in my town, it's hard for me not to put things in terms of school nurses or teachers.
Yeah.
How many units of those? The situation is that the surface waters in your town are in some cases not swimmable and fishable. They don't meet federal and state water quality standards. And the question is, what do you do about that? One answer to that is to do nothing. Let those impaired waters be and more pollutants go in them and all. What my experience is in working with towns is a lot of towns, Rutland included, right now are doing more than what's required by the 2003 permit. And the reason they're doing more than what's required by the permit is because you have your own good reasons to be able to reduce pollutants that are going into your rivers and streams. So that's a town-by-town decision, though. What I hear from towns that are further out west is that even if they don't have impaired waters, they don't want them to get that way. So it really depends on the town.
I've got a question for Gary. I always put him in the hot seat.
Move out of the way.
Gary, what aspects of these regulations are we way ahead on, and which ones are we way behind on?
Well, the ones, for instance, that Hillary mentioned, such as catch basin cleaning, street sweeping, and so on and so forth. We have debris removal processes that we have people bring things to the DPW for compost and so on and so forth. One thing that the town of Rutland has not done that is a costly thing to get done is mapping. We don't have mapping for the town of Rutland. We have a stormwater committee. Unfortunately, for the town of Rutland, there's only one person on it. That might be me. We are members, or were members, until all the budget crises that have happened of the Central Mass Stormwater Coalition. I believe that runs out, our membership runs out July 1, unfortunately. But they are, as Fred and Hillary are certainly telling, it's strength in numbers. So all these things, all these processes for mapping, for outfall testing, for the lab work, all can be done with a large, I think there's how many, 33 now?
Yeah,
33 communities. That's the biggest one, and it's the one that's really led the charge on the appeal process for the stormwater regulations through EPA. So the menial tasks we already take care of. Like Hillary's mentioned, we're ahead of the game on that because we've been doing them for years. But it's the technical aspects and the new regulations that come up, such as I think one of them listed in Hillary's report is a tracking of grass clippings. And it just goes on and on and on. So we've done some, we haven't done it all. And we could very well fall into the minimal cash range or cost range, I should say, of what Hillary has shown you, but we won't know that until we know what happens.
Question through the chair. We're all for reducing pollutants as best as possible. Is there any indication that the way we're doing it right now, currently, is causing any pollution to the, what do you call it, top water?
To tap water?
Yeah, to the surface water. Is there any indication of your current practice now in the DPW with the catch basin and the sweeping? Is there any indication that what you're doing now is causing any pollutants?
I wouldn't say it's causing anything. It's certainly minimizing. They are done on a yearly basis. Catch basin cleaning and sweeping. Sweeping is done twice a year. Catch basin cleaning is done once a year. We do all of our sweeping, street sweeping in-house because we have the equipment. Catch basin cleaning, we do not. We don't have equipment and we don't have a shared equipment, so there was a cost to that. And we have to tie in with that in order to reap the benefit of Chapter 90 funds for catch basin repair. Because Chapter 90 funds will not just take care of catch basin cleaning. They won't do it. So we always have to tie in repair.
Could I add to that? Education is a big part of this, and so homeowners, it's the town's responsibility to educate all the residents. So I think maybe next spring the town could put maybe an educational flyer inside the census mailer or inside the quarterly tax bill envelope, just to give some basic educational information to residents so they can do their part to help with this as well. And we can put things on the website too.
Yeah, and it goes a lot deeper than that, because as Fred has pointed out, it was always just the DPW that has taken care of this from 2003, because I was involved in that when it first started. It was DPW that had to take the lead and make sure that everything was done for all departments in town. Now, so it's a matter of not only educating the public, but we also have to educate the departments.
Yes.
Because it's going to be a big step for them.
Yeah, it is.
Gary, we're still members of the coalition through the end of the month.
Correct.
I remember cutting this. What was the total cost of membership for us?
The membership went up.
$4,000.
It began at $1,000, but it's gone up to
$4,000
$4,000
and
a
they
year.
provide technical assistance.
And that
I
is-
believe that if we were to speak to someone at the coalition, that they'd be patient and give us till fall if town meeting were to appropriate the money back in for the coalition, that they'd be patient and let us come back.
I think there's probably an outcry from other communities as well to get into a coalition, whichever one it may be. So I think there's going to be an influx of communities to do that. When I attended the class or the seminar with Fred and others, I suggested or talked to Fred about, and as I've mentioned to the board, a stormwater enterprise. The thing, and I know you threw some dollar figures out of what you would charge a household. I mean, it's another water sewer thing. It's not, because where does the money come from? How are we going to pay it? You're not going to get it from that amount of money from free cash every year. We don't want to do that.
Gary, are you comfortable drafting a letter to the coalition as our as members, asking for a membership extension through the fall? We obviously can't promise them that we would have the money. That would be up to the townspeople at special town meeting. But it may be that once we start really looking more heavily into what we need to be doing, that the money we spend for membership will get repaid to us, because God forbid we end up spending more on our own for something that the coalition is doing under strength of numbers, right? We try to regionalize everything. So if we lose our place here, I'm not sure that that's the right direction we need to be going in.
Yeah, I'll certainly do that if need be, but we've got a very good relationship with most of the communities within the Stormwater Coalition, including those that sit on the board and those on the steering committee, so I can certainly make the phone call. I actually am on other committees and boards, such as Upper Blackstone, with the officials of Central Mass. So I think something can be done. I guess the only thing is, where does the $4,000 come from? I understand you're saying a fall town meeting, but
There's enough remaining to ask, to request that they allow us to stay on for the first half of FY19 anyway, and then we can see, just like, like Sheila said, if town meeting decides to fund the second half of the year, then.
But more importantly than that, and I'm sure we can get that done, I'm not worried about that at all. But, the attendance at these meetings and these steering committees, these are on and on and on, quite a bit. I mean, all over the circumference, if you will, or the area of the Central Mass Stormwater. It takes a lot of time, takes a lot of effort. And we don't have, like I said, there's only one person on the Stormwater Committee, and there just doesn't seem to be time to do it all. We have to have a viable Stormwater Committee.
Okay, so we have a lot of committees that we need to talk about. Let's add that to the list.
I just did.
Great minds. All right,
And we still have a list coming from Weston and Sampson that's gonna tell us
all kinds of lists.
how close, all right.
Yeah,
And then we can kind
definitely.
of gauge on what the magnitude's gonna be.
Yeah, we've been working with Gary on this for quite some time, so, he has it.
In doomsday scenario, what do we have, about 2,900 houses,
Yeah, we do have
Getting
roughly
there.
that.
more or less, right? So
Yeah.
$38 a house.
Roughly half of them are water sewer users. So, but it goes like these folks have said, it goes further than that. It's just not within the district, it's the town. So,
And that is about what other communities are charging per home. So it's not a lot, but
Under which, because we mentioned two different things, under a stormwater utility or under an enterprise or both? Is that money coming out to be about the same?
so, yeah,
Okay.
yeah, so it depends, it depends on how you wanna set it up. You certainly need to do a little bit of a study to prepare you for the, to back up where the funding is going to come from and where it's gonna go, and how you kind of meet in the middle of what you need versus what you think you can, what you think you can get. And then come to a happy medium. And then you have to come up with the financial structure for it, and that will need to go through town meeting and all your,
Okay.
I can, one of the main difference between, right now, you're funding your stormwater system through taxes. So if you have properties that are tax exempt, they're not paying anything toward that municipal function. An enterprise fund brings in everybody who has property and impervious surface. There are credits, there are ways of being able to calculate the fees so that they are smaller or larger. They could be used to supplement the funds that you're gathering. Last spring, about 3 months ago, both Chelmsford and Dracut, one in a representative and the other at an open town meeting, adopted stormwater enterprise funds. One of them adopted the whole fund with the fee. Town meeting cut the amount in half because they weren't sure what was going to happen with the permit. On the other town, they adopted the mechanism to make sure they could have that and then set the fee later. So lots of different ways to do that. One observation, though, is that people have a limited opportunity to be able to express their dissatisfaction about how much money they're paying into government, and that is I think having a discussion about equity of funding mechanisms is a good way of handling that.
Thank you.
The other thing I wanted to just reiterate is that the stormwater coordinator, I work for you folks. My name and contact information is on the bottom of that second sheet. Anyone who has any questions, you should feel free to call me. You pay taxes, right? So I work for you, so call up. If any of members of the select board have questions too, feel as a group or individually want to talk about this, it's my job.
Fred, thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
I have one more question. It doesn't matter who answers it. It's part of the public education. We're on video now. Could you just give a couple examples of the major pollutants in stormwater so people know?
The major pollutant in freshwater areas is, believe it or not, it's phosphorus. Too much phosphorus gets into rivers and streams, and it basically promotes a lot of plant growth, which takes away the oxygen that's in the rivers and streams, which ends up killing the fish. So in extreme cases, you end up getting fish kills. You see all the muck that happens in some of the more developed areas of the state, down the Charles River. There are areas of the Charles River that, depending on the year, don't support aquatic life. Cyanobacteria can come from that. So it's all a question of figuring out how much pollution a river and stream can handle. What's the total maximum daily load of phosphorus, for example, that a river or stream can handle? And if you're above that, we try to bring that down. No one's trying to bring it down to where there's no pollutants. There's no such thing. But to try to bring it down to where it meets federal and state swimmable and fishable standards is really the goal. And in this part of the state, phosphorus is a main pollutant.
And where's it coming from?
It's coming from a lot of different places. If you took samples from your roofs, you would find phosphorus. Nobody's up there fertilizing their roof. Well, maybe nobody. The pollen that you see it has phosphorus in it. That dries up. It gets wafted up by cars driving on it. Comes to be deposited on roofs. Comes to be deposited on parking lots. Interstate transportation of vehicle emissions from the Midwest, local vehicle emissions, excess fertilizer, variety of different sources. It comes from a lot of different places.
Laundry detergent, other detergents.
Yeah.
All right.
All right, thank you.
Mike, how's your schedule tonight? Really? Yeah. Okay, I'm going to take something out of order. We're going to work our way right down to new business and do our Veteran Service Office appointment recommendation. Because I see the family sitting here. Welcome. Why don't you make your way up?
The board has my recommendation for appointment of Robert Ortiz in your new old business sleeve.
Mr. Ortiz, while we all pull out the right letter, could you introduce yourself?
Yes, my name is Robert Ortiz. I'm a citizen in the town of Spencer.
Spencer.
And I'm hoping to be your next veteran service officer. I myself am a veteran. I was in the Army for 14 years. I am by trade a regional property manager. So I do submit vouchers. I oversee that as well. I have to review all voucher submissions to HUD. So I'm familiar to the processing of paperwork. Other than that, I mean, it's pretty much. I do serve the town of Spencer as well, so I do serve them in the capacity of Spencer and East Brookfield both on the school committee. I'm also a member of the capital subcommittee within the town of Spencer as well. So.
You sound busy.
I was just going to say, you're a
Correct.
busy guy.
Correct.
And if I could, through the chair, I had the pleasure of interviewing Mr. Ortiz last week, and Stephen Gagnon, the town's current VSO, now resigned as of June 1st. He attended with us. Mr. Ortiz expressed his enthusiasm to give back to the veterans of our community. He said that he was there once when he came back from Afghanistan, really not understanding what benefits were available to him, and he wants to be able to extend that to the veterans of the community. Steve Gagnon, who's going to continue to serve in Sturbridge as their VSO because he lives there, is going to continue to mentor Robert and give him leads on meetings and networking and things like that. So I enthusiastically recommend that the board appoint Robert Ortiz as the town's next VSO.
Does anybody have any questions for him?
Thank you for your service.
Oh, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
And thank you for bringing your family.
Thank you.
Welcome.
We need a recommendation.
And before we take the appointment, we actually have a member of our local American Legion, Post 310. We obviously just did our Memorial Day activities, and it would be wonderful to see you reach out, to your point about some of the newer veterans who come back and don't necessarily know everything that's available to them support-wise and what we'd be able to help them with or whatever.
That definitely came up in a meeting that I had with Margaret and Stephen, so
Great.
I'd be more than happy to exchange my contacts as well.
Great. Could I get a motion to appoint?
Well, I'll move that we make the recommendation to appoint Mr. Robert Ortiz as the Veteran Services Officer.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, unanimous.
Thank you very much.
Welcome to
Thank
Rutland.
you.
Welcome. Thank you.
Excuse me. Robert, you'll just have to go to the town clerk's office to be sworn in and give your appointment paperwork. So go ahead and pick that up.
Okay.
Thank you.
It was nice to meet you all.
Nice to meet you. Thank
I
you.
didn't
for coming
actually
up.
meet you, but thank you for being here. And next up, Mike, thank you for waiting.
So, I'm here tonight, obviously for the IMA to be re-signed, by the board. That is a new requirement by the state 911 department. Instead of having individual IMAs with each individual town that's part of the Rutland Rec, they are now looking for a single IMA, with a single, signatory page at the back, for all towns to sign. That's part of the development grant process now, to be submitted. So tonight I'm looking for the board to sign the IMA, to renew the IMA with the current existing communities, as well as accepting the town of Warren into the rec. As you're all aware, you received that letter last meeting from the town of Warren, looking to be accepted into the rec, and this would be under your guys' direction at this point. I have a plan in place, a process. We're looking at January 1 for a cutover date. But it's gonna be on my terms, not under their terms. We're not gonna rush this. We're gonna do it properly and in the right steps, with the assistance, from the state 911 department, the regional 911, PSAP coordinator, which has been a lot of help at this point right now. So that's what I'm here looking for you guys, is to first,
That was my only question, is when this is gonna take effect?
January
January 1st?
Yep. And that's been mutually agreed on by myself, the town of Warren, and the state 911 department.
I support Mike's recommendation for the joint signing of the IMA documents. I was at the meeting that, where State 911 said, we're looking for all towns to be signatories on a single document. So we've got two originals here, just in case one gets lost among all the
Yep,
towns,
yep,
but so we're asking the board to sign.
And right now, the preliminary numbers that I ran so far, the town of Rutland is looking at roughly a $42,000 savings to their assessment. That could go up, depending on State 911 and the increase of the support incentive grant, which is the funding that we get to use for wages. So it all depends on the increase of what they're going to give us when
Got
Warren
that
comes in.
spent?
Yeah.
Grass clippings.
Yeah.
And that savings would be effective when, Mike?
It's gonna January 1.
From January to.
1.
Yeah. So it'd
Second
be-
half of the year.
It's not going to be the full 42,000. That would be the full year savings. So whenever they come in January,
How is Warren doing right now?
Warren's doing good.
Okay.
So far, they're able to cover all their shifts at this point.
Can I ask a question through the chair? Margaret, I mean, we're all good with the single signature. What are your thoughts on adding the town of Warren into the club here?
I absolutely agree with Mike that adding the town of Warren is doable. I also think the towns are going to benefit by adding the town of Warren. I also agree with Mike that this must be on Rutland Regional Dispatch's timeline. This cannot be treated as an urgent issue for Warren. It has to be done so that the cutover is smooth and seamless. So it seems realistic. But I support adding the town of Rutland, and in fact, I support adding additional towns once Warren is on.
Thank you.
And that's where the new facility came in.
Yes.
That's where the facility discussion has to come in.
Yep. Exactly.
So,
We should make that discussion soon.
Yes. Yes. I'm exploring those options right now.
That's on the board's list of goals and objectives.
Anybody else? Questions?
we should say publicly that Lee and I had a nice tour of the rec center on Friday.
Okay.
It was very impressive. It was very nice to sit down with you and learn more about what happens behind the glass.
Yes.
Yeah.
Everybody's always welcome.
So thank you for that.
No problem. It's my pleasure.
All right, that was in your packet. The
Yes.
intermunicipal agreement is in your packet in case you haven't read it yet, and I would entertain a motion to sign.
I'll make a motion that the board sign the new updated IMA intermunicipal contract agreement for the year starting July 1st through June 30th of 2018 to 2019.
Thank you.
I'll second that.
Thank you. Are there any more questions, discussion? No? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, unanimous. Thanks, Mike, for
Thank
everything
you.
so far.
Thank you all.
Thanks, Mike.
Appreciate it.
And I forgot to ask this, the state is on board with the
The whole-
cautious rollout?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, they are. Yep.
Good.
Thanks for coming out.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Want me to Barry? Yes. So you can take these originals with you.
Yeah. I am going to go out of order one more time, and we have a second appointment where the people are here for the RDIC.
Good evening. Mike Sullivan, Chairman of the RDIC. As you are aware, we have a vacancy on our committee due to the resignation of Mark O'Clair. I'd like to take this opportunity to publicly thank him for his many years of service. We posted this on the internet and in the Landmark and had one applicant. And at our last meeting, our board unanimously supported that applicant. And I think her reputation precedes her, Karen Greenwood. So I'm here to ask you for your support in appointing Karen Greenwood to the RDIC.
Karen, come on up.
Nobody knows Karen.
Welcome. Could you please introduce yourself?
Karen Greenwood, 7 Breezy Lane. I'm a lifelong resident in the townie here in Rutland. And I was going to say recently retired. It's actually been over 2 years. I retired from the city of Worcester as the veterans agent. And just been hanging out, looking for something to do. Oh, and I just retired from doing the 4th of July for 20 years, too. So I got a little time on my hand. So I should be an asset to the committee and able to make meetings, if that helps.
Now, your first letter of interest to them was a long time ago, wasn't it?
A year ago.
A year ago.
When I updated it, when I heard the vacancy, you know, you go on your computer, and I think it was off by a few days, so it was quite ironic.
Does anybody have any questions? Could I have a motion to appoint?
I'll make the motion that we appoint Ms. Karen Greenwood to the RDIC.
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Unanimous.
Thank you.
Welcome and
Thank
thank
you.
you.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Can Mr. Ortiz call you too?
Yes.
No pressure. Oh, thank you.
If the new VSO needs any assistance, I'm available.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Welcome. All right, jumping again, I'm going under new business to the water and sewer rate study since we still have Hillary here.
Yes, while Hillary's here, please, and thank you. I've given this water and sewer rate study packet to the board several meetings ago. I hope you've had time to review it. To us, it's important to make sure, due to all these new costs coming up, such as water replacement lines, infrastructure repairs, so on and so forth, as well as the studies such as stormwater that we're looking into, that hopefully we can make a motion and approve this. And if there's any questions regarding this, it is a lump sum not to exceed $27,500. It can be shared between the two enterprises, so it will not come out of operating. So if there's any questions regarding this, if you've had a chance to review it, Hillary is here to answer those.
Hillary, this didn't look much different from, I think, the first one that I did with you back in '07. I think you've probably done one before that, but I didn't see many differences to this document.
Yeah, it's not, it's a pretty standard practice for all communities to go through something like this every several years to make sure that, you know, the money that you're collecting in your rates and fees matches up with what you need. So that's basically what this study's all about.
Has this study already been done, or is this something that you're looking to do for
No, so this would be to do that study, to update the rates.
27.5?
Yeah.
Through the Chair, question for Gary. Gary, is the 27.5 split evenly between the two enterprises? Is that the plan? Okay.
We just increased rates. Yes?
We did increase rates
Sewer.
minimally.
Sewer.
We knocked down the assessment on the water rate last year, we did. But as you know, with my proposals to replace some water line, especially at the older neighborhoods, we're talking
Right.
well over $1 million just for one neighborhood.
Right.
But the same goes for the sewer lines as well. Such as, and we'll find out what defects, if any, when Western Sampson shortly starts their I&I program. So, but it all takes, even after that article, it all takes money after that. We just want to make sure that that money's going into the system. So I guess what I'm afraid of, my big fears for the water and sewer users have to take out a loan. And I think we've been pretty successful in the last 10 years not to have to do that. The funds have been available, and now we're getting down. We have a lot of money to spend, a lot of repairs, a lot of infrastructure looking, engineering, design to take care of. So I think it's very important that the rate study, and even if it went the other way, that we're charging too much and had to go down, I think it's very important that that be taken care of.
You're looking at a roughly December 31st ending point, 180 days, okay. Anybody have any questions? If not, can I have a motion? And this would be to allow Gary to sign it.
Make a motion that give Gary permission to sign the water sewer rate study.
Second.
Sorry, did you have a question? No.
Just want to clarify, this is what you want, right?
This is what we need.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Unanimous. Thank you. Okay, I'm back on track. Could we do, actually, I'm not back on track. Margaret, here's your chance. Do you want to go before Gary?
No, I can go after.
Gary, you're up.
I'm up.
You're up. Actually, no, I got it wrong. Public comment. God forbid I miss public comment. Is there anyone here for public comment? Please proceed. You do. I suppose you could stand right in the middle here, Tom.
I'm here, Tom Rochelle from 25 Maple Avenue. I'm here on behalf of Rutland Post 310, the American Legion. I just wanted to make note that we took on the project of refurbishing the World War I monument. We came to you last November and asked about doing that and come up with a little plan to go forward with, and you guys agreed to it, and we went ahead and got it done. So it's completed over there. I hope everybody's seen it. It came out pretty nice.
That's beautiful.
It's gorgeous.
Yeah, thank you so much for that.
I noticed on that bottom down here under correspondence, I don't know what that letter of appreciation is about, but Green Garden Nurseries is the ones that we hired to do the job.
Okay.
The Post did the work, the Post did the project and is paying the bills for the project.
An additional letter will be going to the Post from the board. So the Post will get a letter.
When you say an additional letter,
Yeah, there's going to be letters going out for all three, thanking Green Gardens Nursery for the work they did and thanking the Memorial Day Committee for hosting the
well, we're gonna
event.
take care of thanking Green Gardens. We hired them to do the work.
You don't want the town to thank
Well, you
them?
can, but I'm just trying to make what I'm trying to do is make sure the Post gets the credit, because the Post does a lot of things that they should be getting credit for, and they have over the years.
They have a letter. There's a letter in the Post.
Has the letter gone out?
It's right here
in front
to
of
be
you.
signed by the
So
board.
actually, and this is apparently my thing tonight, going out of order, under correspondence, you have letters of appreciation. And so let's start, since you're standing here, with formally at this meeting thanking you, because the entire event is really lovely. And you had an amazing turnout this year, which was really great to see. And that particular monument looks better than, certainly in my memory, which doesn't go back that far here. But yeah, it looks amazing.
Well, it does. We hope it's gonna last as long as whatever the last time it was fixed. And I did want to make a quick comment too. The Memorial Day Committee, I just wanted to make you aware that we have a Memorial Day Committee, and I was on the Memorial Day Committee for years and years and years. I got off the year before last because I went on to the Finance Committee. But the Legion, Rutland Post 310 has been the driving force behind getting Memorial Day done for at least, I'm gonna say 10, 12, 15, because the town used to have a budget.
Right.
Budget was cut out.
Right.
And previous to that, Legion did things for Memorial Day, but when that budget ended, the Post picked up all the costs for that over all these past years.
Okay.
Now, we haven't had a band for the last 2 years because the band disbanded. And it was a band that did Rutland, I think Rutland, Princeton, and another town. I'm not sure what the other town was, but they had it lined up so, well, they disbanded, but we looked into other bands and the cost is just astrological. So that's why there hasn't been a band for the last 2 years. So, at any rate, what I came for tonight before was a memorial, the World War I memorial over there, that we completed that project, and
We really appreciate it.
we are gonna get an article in the paper very shortly, and we're gonna try to do a rededication, because when we started this project last, I think our note with you was last November, well, we talked about it for a couple of years now, but last November, we didn't realize that this is the 100th anniversary of the end of World War I. I think we knew about it, but we didn't connect the dots at the time we started doing it, so it actually worked out perfect, so.
Can I, as a former member, can I ask you one question about the Memorial Day Committee? Because I remember when the year we had to cut the budget from Memorial, from 4th of July, and we have a couple of committees that have sort of not been maintained. And to your point about the Post doing the majority of the work for these past 10 years, I'd personally just as soon see the committee revitalized to make sure that the town supports the Legion, if that's what it comes to, in whatever it can. And I think a perfect example, and I think Jeff and I were standing together, even the flags, the town flags, and the fact that we need to remember to change them out prior to Memorial Day, because they take a beating over the winter. We all know they take a beating.
Well, that's similar to the street. We put the street,
You
Post
put the
was-
street flags
The street
up.
flags up, and that costs us quite a bit of money every year too, because
Right.
those flags take a beating too.
Yeah.
To your point though, I guess it's like some other groups in town. The thing with the Post and the Memorial Day Committee, as long back as I can remember to when I was a kid marching Memorial Day Parade, it's basically the same people that are, like right now, the people that are on the Memorial Day Committee are the Legion people.
Okay.
And if you look at the report from the last couple of years from Memorial Day Committee, basically they meet, they want to do a Memorial Day parade and a celebration or a commemoration because of Memorial Day, and they vote to ask the Legion to do it because the Legion is paying all the bills. So.
Right.
So that's the way it's been. But I mean, it's the same. We're all sitting
No, I know.
at the same table doing the same thing. So.
But even if it were as little as that link to the town to ensuring that we're providing you with everything you need.
Well, yeah, sure.
Okay.
But they're there. They are. I mean,
They're
the
there.
people are there and working, and they all work hard at doing this
Thank
this
you.
program too. So
It's-
that's why when we finished the program, I know we hadn't set it for a number of years, but I try to make a point now to get up at the end of the celebration, the commemoration, memorial, to say that on behalf of the Memorial Day Committee and the Post that we thank everybody for coming. So
we thank you.
okay.
Thank you.
So thank you.
Just so on that topic, you do have 3 letters in front of you. It's the only thing under correspondence. If I could have a motion to sign all 3 by the Board of Selectmen.
Make a motion that we sign all 3 letters of appreciation as stated.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Unanimous? Thank you. Okay, now Gary. Actually, is there any more public comment? No.
I'm sorry, not tonight, they're busy.
He's taking his notes. He'll get us later.
I won't take as long as Dick usually takes, but I just have a couple of things here. And one is for just an update on Chapter 90 projects. So everyone knows, as I've announced several meetings ago, we had a kitty of roughly $236,000 with an expected additional amount of $377, which has not been awarded yet. So I don't even know if or when that's coming in as of last week, unless you, Skip, or Sheila got the letter, because I think it's generally mailed directly to the chair for the $377. But I did ask state aid office last week, and it has not been awarded yet. So of the 236 that remain, I have 3 projects outstanding that we are working on or about to work on. One is for a continuation of the East Hill Road project, and I've submitted a project request for $56,535, and that is what we talked about the last meeting for paving and culvert drainage work. Another was for Irish Lane, which is complete. That was 23.5. That's been a full depth reclamation has been done, as well as the whole roadway calcified. Nothing but good remarks about that, so people are happy that's done. That will be the end of that project. That will not be paved. It will stay like it is. So
not impervious.
yeah.
Nice.
And the last one is for 13.6, will be the line striping and crosswalk painting, all of which will be done within the next 2 weeks prior to 4th of July, so that's a good thing. So those are my projects. That's what's outstanding. I am meeting with John Morgan of CHA Consultants tomorrow to see where we are with the design for the Molten Mill Dam project. So I'll give you an update on that in the next meeting. And the only other thing I had on the agenda was Charnock Hill. Received a lot of complaints of Charnock Hill. I've complained about it myself. On December 21st of last year, I sent the board, as well as Margaret, an email, a copy of an email, CC'd all of you, that email that I sent to Cleve Blair. I have never received a response. I have the email with me. I don't know if you've all had a chance to
The
read
board
it.
has the copy of the email in your town department sleeve. Gary, you have the copy in front of you?
I do.
Okay, good.
I don't know if you've gotten a chance to really look at it or if you have any questions regarding it, but I have stated our case, the DPW's case, and I believe the town's case on this roadway.
So essentially, in December of 2017, you requested that he submit his plan to you for repaving that area in the spring once the plant's open.
That's correct. I received nothing, nor have I received any comment on my email. So my fear is that if we just go and down, not we, but if we go and patch the ditch line, we'll have a jagged edge. It will not all be the same level or compaction. And in the springtime, once the water gets out under it and freezes and it starts to heave, the plows will just scrape it off. So my recommendation is, it's more than a request, I think, Margaret, my recommendation is that it be paved the full width of the roadway from Main to Woodside, which is roughly 3,200 feet.
And the full width from where to where again?
Main to Woodside.
Okay.
Now, using Chapter 90 money, approximately 2 years ago, we did pave north of Woodside, going down to the rail trail. I'm sure you're all familiar with that, and that was done. We did not do the other part because construction was coming, obviously, so we were not going to pave something that was going to be dug up, and it didn't need it. It did not need Chapter 90 work. It was in good condition. It was plowable. I had no issues with it.
The use of Chapter 90 money that belongs to the entire town to repair something that a private entity has caused, I would say to the board, that's absolutely not appropriate.
No, but where do we go? I guess my question to the board and to you, Margaret, is where do you go from here? I've not received a response. It's a requirement that road has to be taken care of.
Go ahead.
Has the board or the town sent him something on letterhead?
I've only sent this email, and I did not receive a response, so that's all I have is this
The board
email.
has not, but the board could actually, because this is an agenda item, the board could authorize the chair to sign a letter following up on this matter. So before your next meeting, this could be taken care of.
I think we should stair step it a little bit.
So
You know, Sheila, because you were involved in this from the get-go, as you were, Skip, as well, and Wayne, obviously. These plans were revised so many times from 2006. It wasn't supposed to go up Charnock. It ended up going up to Charnock, but it's still, policy is to bring it back to original or better condition than what it is now, obviously.
I mean, I hate to say this, but I will say it. We should never have let it go up Charnock. And we are now, not we, the residents are paying the price I do have a question, and I'm not, it's on the agenda, so we did get one response, right, from a planning board member, from Tim Narwhal, about the same situation. So his comment was wanting to ask the board to consider asking the DPW chief to shut down construction on Bryce Lemon until Quinn Engineering have the latest set of plans with markups of changes. And I agree, this development has gone through kind of an unprecedented even for this amount of changes. And obviously it's been going on for a long time. I don't have anything, I'm looking at you, official from the planning board at all. Yeah. So I guess, tell us again, Gary, what you're asking for.
I'm asking for 3,200 feet to be paved from shoulder to shoulder
By
by the contractor, not to use Chapter 90 funds. This wasn't slated for Chapter 90 work. There's many, many, many more roads that have to be done before Charnock.
Where did you ever get the idea we would use Chapter 90 funds?
Well, I'm not using Chapter 90.
No, where would you ever get the idea that we would?
Yeah, well.
So let's get back to this.
Chapter 90 funds are, I am the authorized signatory in town for Chapter 90 funds, and as the board knows, I really need not even bring it to the board to get work done of any kind. But I do, and that's my policy. So I would fully expect that if I brought something like this to the board to give me an approval, they would not give it to me, and if the board did not give it to me, I would not sign.
Okay. So the letter has to clearly state that no Chapter 90 funds are going to be used for this.
It's out of the question.
Absolutely.
I'm not even sure why it was brought up. Explain to me how Chapter 90 even came into the discussion.
Well, it was brought up by the contractor
Oh,
quite a while ago that it would have to be, it needed pavement. It did not. No, no, it did not need pavement. The road was fine. The only piece of that road was what we did with Chapter 90 funds north of Woodside a couple of years ago, because there was depressions, shoulder depressions, lateral and alligator cracking, so longitudinal cracking across the whole thing. That had to be done. That was full depth reclamation and pave.
so that's my next question, because right now what your email states is repave end to end. But what do you actually want? Because unlike the Chapter 90 work that you do up to a particular standard, asking a contractor to go and repave a public road comes with an enormous amount of risk if we don't have, a statement of work. What are we requiring? Very specifically, what are we requiring?
I can certainly spell that out for you in a memo, but the way I do a road, when it needs doing, like that one does now, is a full depth rec. All the time.
Full depth?
All the time. 12-inch full depth rec followed by 2 and 2.
3,200 square feet
Two
of it.
base, 2 top.
Who's gonna mark it out?
Who, excuse me?
Who would mark it out?
I'll mark it out, because it goes, it's very obvious. It goes from Main Street all the way down to Woodside.
I think Sheila means the width,
The width,
Yeah.
stake in the width of the road.
I'd mark it out.
Right.
And I would base that on the width of the remainder of the road that has not been disturbed. Some of their lines are off the shoulder, but a lot of it was dug out. That affected the mainstream, if you will, of the blacktop that existed. We cannot have a jagged edge patch job for 3,200 feet.
Chair? And all associated costs, like the police details and traffic safety and things like that, will be borne on the contractor?
Of course it would be.
Of course, yeah,
Not
I
us.
mean, the issue we have here is that this went back and forth for a very long time, and most of the town did not want any of this work done on Charnock Hill Road. So,
But for the letter, I mean, spell it out,
Yeah.
that, all the associated costs throughout if it's gonna be a summer's worth of project,
yeah,
you gotta put a summer's worth of details out there.
it's not a summer. Gary, how long should this level of work take?
How long should it take to do?
Because that should be included in the letter as well. We want a deadline.
Yeah, it's only 3,200 feet. It should, my recommendation, suggestion, it would have to be done over the course of the summer season before school starts.
But that could get dragged out weeks. This is not a multi-week long project.
It would not be it's only 3,200 feet. The whole thing can be full depth in a day and a half to 2 days max. 2 days of base and 2 days of top done. It can be done in ideal weather conditions a week.
Ideal weather conditions a week. And I mean, that's where I'm headed, because what we don't want is for the reclamation to get done, and then the road to be down to dirt, down to gravel, with a sign out front that says, travel at your own risk. Because that could go on for weeks while somebody, waits for a paving company who might be ready 6 weeks from now. I just, obviously, not doing it ourselves comes with a lot of risk. I don't want to do it ourselves at all, but we also can't do it and then bill the contractor.
No,
So, which I would like to do.
no.
I have a comment.
And it's all I mean, you're in a construction season, it's all with scheduling now. And
Yeah.
that's why I asked for this to be scheduled and mapped out for the beginning of spring, when the paving plant's open, but I have nothing.
Do you mind if he go?
No, I was just gonna say, Tim Malwell is right, he and I have been discussing this and a few others. Original plan, which is still in the office, shows it going right through the middle of the subdivision, and that's where it should have gone. He is the one that wanted to put it over there, so he pays for it, period. So,
I'm sorry, go ahead, Margaret.
Oh, no, I was just gonna reiterate my recommendation to the board that the board send this next letter.
With
Okay. Yeah.
a very detailed letter with, I mean, kind of with
With
Gary
his-
and everything, like,
Yep, timeline, requirements that he consult with Gary, the requirements for the, what is it, the 12-inch something?
Full depth
Full
reclamation.
depth, yeah.
And we have all those are bid items for the DPW. I can put a dollar figure together. I don't know who he would use for a paver or a reclaimer, but I use whoever wins the low bid for town.
So I think one option, and I don't know if you want to put this in the letter or have this as a discussion later, is that he allows the town to supervise the work and pays the bills. That would actually make me a lot happier.
What do you
but-
mean pays the
Pays
bills?
the bills. No way.
That he
He pays
pays
the
us
bill.
and we pay?
No. He pays the contractor directly, but we supervise the work.
I can see
Oh.
supervising the work.
Yeah.
I misunderstood what you said.
What do we have as far as recourse here? I mean, it's one thing to
There would be
say,
a next, there would be a next step,
That was my question.
and that
What
would
are
be,
the
that would be
consequences?
right to town council.
okay,
Should we spell that out
I think
with your
so.
deadline?
so Gary, this seems time sensitive, so I think what I'd like to ask the board, does anybody have any more questions? Is this clear? Okay, what I'll ask the board is to authorize the chair to sign a letter, coming from the Board of Selectmen via, Gary, you're gonna prepare it for us, that will include everything that we talked about.
And add a timeline, a real concrete
With a very,
timeline.
yeah. And I mean, we can have discussions about this. We can certainly send a letter out to all of you before it goes out. We can certainly wait until the next meeting too, if you want to have a vote on it.
Can you put two timelines on it? One is the length of time to get the work done, because you don't want to go and pay, you don't want to go further than 10 days or 2 weeks. The other timeline is to get it done before school starts up in September.
Well, the other thing to add to a timeline is to work around the pavers. And again, as in, don't reclaim the road if you know the paving company isn't coming out 8 weeks, for 8 weeks, because then now we've got a dirt road that we're dealing with all summer.
Well, you're saying dirt road, I understand that, but it's a reclamation. So whatever
know.
asphalt is on top of it now will be turned into the dirt.
Right.
So it's not a
Well,
gravel dirt road. No, I'm
sorry,
just telling
I
you, so
know.
there's
I'm
a lot more
sorry.
stability and strength to reclamation involving asphaltic product than there is gravel.
It's still,
I know, I hear you. I know what you're saying. I just want you to understand what
no,
I'm saying.
thank you. I didn't use the right terms. Yes?
and base coat not to be reclamation product either.
Base coat is 2 inches of Bitconk base,
Bitcon base,
followed by
right.
2 inches of Bitconk top.
Not,
And
not the free
once
millings that he got from Holden? Is that where you're headed?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, okay, I hear you. I hear you, but I can put the whole cost together. Basically, it's gonna say, the letter's gonna say, we can make it a Reader's Digest version of what I said here, and then with the stipulations that the board has added, and the costs, I can put something together, and I'm sure we can tune it up.
I don't know why you need to give the cost.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I don't.
That's not,
No, it just needs to be fixed
our-
according to your specs.
Okay.
not our problem. I think my only devil's advocate concern now is we give him through the whole summer, it doesn't happen, and now we're
another one.
10 weeks, if we're lucky, away from the asphalt plants closing.
Give them 60 days.
Shouldn't take.
Yeah, I think anybody that drives that, I don't know if you do, Dick, if anybody's seen it, drives that on a regular basis can see that more damage was done to that over the winter season because we've had to plow it. So,
Well, that's why I said a time frame before school.
excuse me?
That's why I added the time frame before school.
It's gotta be done
Completion of the
before.
entire
It's gotta be done
project.
Right.
before school.
I would think well before. School is a long way off.
Why
But-
not give them an order of conditions and post a bond on it?
That's not really our wheelhouse. I mean, it sounds like the planning board is getting involved. Dick, when's your next meeting?
Next week from Tuesday. But you're talking private, versus public roads
Yeah.
too.
Right.
Does the bond that's in place now, would it cover that?
It might, but do you really want to use it if something happens all of a sudden? You know, for what's left in that?
Wouldn't he have to
Phase
replenish
one?
the bond, though, if we use the money?
If we're going after the bond money, there's a reason for it, so. Gotta be careful.
Okay. Could I have a motion to at least have,
Motion for the chair to sign appropriate letter for Charnock.
for the paving of Charnock? Thank you.
Second.
Any more discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Like,
Unanimous.
Okay, and that's enough fun of mine for tonight. Unless there's any questions?
For Gary?
I have something. You have the DPW superintendent job description in your packets. I would ask the board to review the job description for your next meeting. And what I will do is bring a job advertisement, a draft, that could be posted with the MMA before the end of this month. I also think that there needs to be a discussion on a succession plan and a screening team, setting up a screening team to review resumes. So if the board could tackle that at your very next meeting, that would be great.
Well, it's already been two months, Margaret, and really nothing has been done here. I think it's very important with you've got a search committee and so on and so forth.
Yep.
There's 6 months left,
Yep.
so.
Absolutely. We need to, I'd like to be ready to post the job ad the day after your next meeting.
That was my question. Has the job ad been posted yet? But it hasn't because we haven't had this conversation.
Right.
Okay.
can we,
Why can't we post it now? To let the people know that we're looking to replace somebody.
Well, the problem with posting it now,
We don't have a job description yet.
Oh, job description at all.
It's in.
no, we do.
It's in here.
Skip,
And I could develop a job ad based on the job description.
Skip, I think the question, and I don't know if this is where you're headed, is are we going to not make any changes? I mean, Gary, we need to have an honest-to-God conversation with you as to what the department should look like without you in it. Because you're short-staffed, you've been operating short-staffed for years. There's been discussion about water sewer commission, water sewer commissioner, and a reorg. So this is the time we have to do this. So we can't post without having that discussion. I don't know if that was everybody's reason, but it was mine for not posting it.
what I was gonna get at is similar to what you did with the police chief's search, Margaret, is could we at least put it out that we're soliciting soliciting applications for a screening committee, just at least for the resumes at this point.
Yeah. You could get on that. Yeah, that's.
With
that's
qualification, with the
Again-
qualifications why a town resident wants to be on the search committee.
Right. To have legitimate qualifications to be on that search committee. And to your point, Sheila, you're absolutely right. I think a discussion with Gary about how the department will look down the road, we'll call it PG, post Gary. What is your ideal, I think the question needs to be asked, what is your ideal vision of the department post Gary?
And honestly, I don't care if it's scrawled on a napkin. I think we need to look at an organizational structure that would have been your ideal, that you'll never have apparently in your time here.
Well, I guess the ideal situation for the town of Rutland is to have a superintendent that can be a full-time superintendent. there's a lot of labor involved. Just talk about plowing snow, menial tasks. And I don't mind doing them. I love working on the outside. But now you're 5 people down. So there is no choice but to have a superintendent be a laborer when need be. And there's a lot of stuff to catch up. There's a lot of things on the plate of the town of Rutland. We've got the TIP, we've got complete streets, we've got all this Chapter 90 work, we've got the Molten Mill Dam, we've got the work for the sidewalks, the schools. All this stuff has to be done. And
Have you put ads out again for the vacancies? For the
yes, they're out. They went out last week.
They went
for,
last week? Okay, good.
Yeah, 3 full-time highway sewer, 1 full-time custodian, 1 full-time water operator. Plus 2, I did put up an ad for 2 seasonal employees. We're 5 down now, so the money is there for this budgetary season to pay for that, because I really am not getting any responses from anybody qualified. So we also have to sit down and talk about that, about what you will let me accept for applicants, and we'll have to put a time frame on when he or she will receive licenses required to do the work. Most folks, if not all, are applying, and they all have either one or the other, that being CDL or hoisting. Well, we need both. So
Where have you advertised them? In which publication?
we put them in the local newspaper,
The Landmark?
Landmark, and we put them in the Telegram.
In the Telegram.
And they're
Okay.
on, Anita put them on the site.
Okay.
They're posted at all the locations in town where they have to be.
Can you see if Anita will send it out as an email to the list?
I think, Abby, you have put them out on whatever that thing is you use, that, what's this miracle, what is it? What's it called?
Indeed.
Indeed,
Yeah, we've
you
used
have.
Indeed for some.
Yeah, and we did get a lot of responses. Unfortunately, they just associate a word with the job, and we've had people come in that were high-tech people, or CEOs, or in the finance world somewhere, insurance companies. And we got a lot of them, but none of them were anywhere near qualified for that type of job.
Barry, was that? Wondering if we could even.
But ideally, to answer your question, is you have to have a superintendent that can be a full-time superintendent. You've got a water and sewer commissioners, that has to be decided by the board. You've got now Stormwater Coalition that we've not been able to attend. Upper Blackstone, that I try to attend on a regular basis just for the rates and the sewer flows and so on and so forth. But there's really not a lot of time to fill all those tasks that have to be taken care of.
Yeah.
But with 5, if you had the 5 people that we're short, it would certainly make it a lot better, because we got an excellent staff, as I've certainly told the board, Margaret, you, the town, everybody knows it, that without that staff, you'd be lost, because they're very innovative and they can make a lot of adjustments. So, but also you've got a foreman, because of staff shortage, who also goes out and has to run the equipment and do the work instead of going out on a daily basis and having the time to check what has to be done next. So we have to rely on complaints, and I don't like to be reactive. I like to be proactive and get things done ahead of time. Unfortunately, because of the shortage of staff, we're not able to do that all the time. It seems like we're apologizing. We still don't have all our mailboxes fixed from winter. We still, we've just gotten finished picking up the broken berm, and we've got to get our berm machine out and start doing it, but we don't have the people to do it. I had 2 people in today. That's it, 2 people. This is a bad time of year because everybody's using their vacation prior to July 1, because they really can't use it in the wintertime. We need them. So it's a tough time of year.
I have to say,
And I'm not complaining. I still, the guys are great, the town's great, I love my job.
Well, but I completely agree with you.
I'm just getting so old.
That.
Really?
I think the given the growth of the town, I don't know that this job description has changed significantly in the last many years, but given the growth in town, I think the town needs to look at more administrative functions being performed by the DPW superintendent instead of going out in the field. And of course, that's subject to staffing, to sufficient staffing. So,
I mean, it's nice to get out and do that stuff, don't get me wrong. I mean, I love doing it, but
yeah, the issue
it's
is
the other
time.
stuff that just has to get put on the back burner, and I guess I don't like that part of it.
So at your next meeting, if the board is willing to have a, comprehensive discussion on this and plan out your next steps, that'd be great.
If you have time, Gary, for an organizational chart, again, handwritten, I don't care.
Well, we have the one that was put out.
Yeah.
I think you have it on your
Yeah.
office.
We've
We
got
do
that.
have one that's out, but
I
it,
mean, one that you would like, in an
one that I would like, okay.
In an ideal world.
Okay.
Okay. And I just want to thank you. So Rutland participated in the Rain Barrel program for the first time this year. Worcester has done it for many years. The company is state bid list, and there had been a hole in delivery access in the whole northern Worcester County where you had to go down to Worcester or way out somewhere else to go and pick up a barrel. So first year we had, I think, 42 barrels sold, and I just want to thank your staff. It actually went really smoothly. Delivery went smoothly. Pick up amazingly in the 2 days that we gave them. We gave them 4 hours over 2 days, and all of them got taken, and we've already had feedback that just even from the rain in the last couple days that the barrels have filled, which was interesting actually after hearing from Fred about roof runoff and the fact that some of that's going to get diverted and that phosphorus will go back into the gardens. So I really appreciate that the DPW is
you're
willing
very
to do
welcome. I
that.
mean, it was
in the
minimal
midst-
part,
Well-
effort on our part. I mean, all we did was unload the truck, and you had somebody stand by and help you hand the stuff out.
Yeah, it
so.
was great. So I appreciate it.
But good, you're welcome.
Anybody else for Gary?
Thanks, Gary.
Thank you.
Thank you, Gary.
Welcome.
Margaret, got to get you out of here.
All
I mean,
right.
tonight.
What else is left here? We've got work session
about
retreat. Work session retreat?
You
Oh, you
want-
want the list of private ways?
Does he want us, well, never mind, he's gone now. Get it.
Gone?
Gary, you got.
So what a pri,
He's still here. I think he stepped out with Hillary.
Jill, you can decide which agenda item you want. We're ready for all of it.
I'm going to leave it up to you. If you need to leave and get going.
No, I'm,
Okay.
haven't gotten anything.
Okay, so I guess we were going to go to the work session retreat for the Board of Selectmen.
And I'm just going to give the board a very brief update. I was to look into how other towns conduct the board's work sessions or retreats. They are posted as open meetings, which it might complicate things, but what the board really needs is just a very specific agenda that includes work items or discussion points. And in this particular case, it could be setting the board's goals and objectives for the coming year and long-term goals and objectives. You could have that as your sole work session retreat agenda item in the near future. But to answer the question on how it's posted, it is posted as an open meeting. Some boards actually go to other towns and have the meeting in another town, but regardless, it's an open meeting.
Okay. Anybody thoughts? This would be something relatively new for us, actually. It's not something we've often done.
What isn't there we can't get done at a regular meeting? It's my, if I was out in the public and looking at this, I'd say, what do they gotta go out of town, or where do they go hiding, what are they talking about? They're, being devious, they're trying to sneak something in the back door.
So
That's the way I look. That's- If I was, one of these people that voted us in, I'd say, what are they up to now?
Transparency issues.
Yeah, and I think one of the major downsides to including it in a regular agenda, not that it's a bad thing, but your regular agendas are pretty full with all kinds of things. So,
You didn't, what are you talking about?
I said I didn't put you up.
Oh, no, you don't, because you and I we don't click. Let's be real. I mean, I'm too blunt, I know that.
so something for the board's consideration.
Okay, so I think what we're going to do then is, it's something I think we should do. I don't know that we can wait for our goals and objectives, but I agree, Margaret, we should probably make it a separate meeting and post it, say, for a roundtable room as opposed to this. This is not conducive.
Yep.
I think it's also a courtesy to the public to not take up valuable regular meeting time with something that's going to be brainstorming.
Right.
So.
Which is not to say we wouldn't be releasing minutes anyway. So, anything that got...
You'd have minutes, you'd have
Right.
notes from this.
Right. Okay, so what I'm thinking then, and we can all pick a date, and maybe you can, Abby, you can throw out some dates and see on an off night what we all might be able to do. And I'm thinking maybe the Wood studio would be a great location for a meeting like this.
It's pretty small if you're gonna end up people showing up, Sheila.
I think it fits 30, actually. Considering how we get at our usual meetings, I don't know.
Yeah,
There's a
okay.
surprising amount of room in there.
Yeah, I
I've
think
been
it's
there
30.
100 times, but
Is it 30? You're in there more, I think. 30, right? 20
would be max.
Yeah. Okay. Gary's back, so let's go to the list of private ways and snow removal. You
So-
thought you were done, Gary.
So the town adopted Chapter 40, Section 6C. Oh, gosh, I can't remember when. Was it 1966 or was it 1986? Either way. It was a few decades ago. And that statute allows for the town to make appropriation to maintain private ways to the extent that it includes only removal of snow and ice from the way. So the town has historically removed snow and ice from this listing of private ways that the board has in front of it. And this is something that I mentioned at a recent board meeting to see if we could make sure that there is a definitive list of ways and the list doesn't continually grow. So this is basically saying that the board acknowledges that these are the private ways, this list, which is finite. There are 30 private ways listed with very small portions of roads totaling 4.374 miles of roadway. So this memorializes the list of private ways. Now, the caveat is that I did send this to legal counsel. She has not given it a firm okay yet, so if the board does want to vote this list, I would suggest voting the list and signing it contingent on legal counsel's approval. Does anybody, should the list be read, or?
I will read the list, but before I read it, I had a couple questions because we don't have the vote in front of us from town meeting. From what did you end up saying?
It was
Deciding
either 66 or 86.
I think it's 66.
It's quite a while ago. I can't
Are we convinced that the language at town meeting makes it very clear that the list could be stopped? Why stop it today? What if
Yep.
there is a private way that is created tomorrow on
got a lot
on an
more coming
estate
down the
lot?
road. Yeah.
Well, right, and that's where, how do we know that what was talked about at town meeting was meant to be infinite?
So,
Or
the
finite.
reason is because the statute itself gives the board jurisdiction to approve the list of ways.
Okay.
That's what I'm actually waiting for the final okay on from legal counsel, but the statute itself is the guide. And this town meeting vote, it wasn't even a town meeting vote, it actually went to a ballot vote. The statute requires a ballot vote. And the town simply approved the statute. The statute even outlines the language of the question, the ballot question. So it was a very simple chapter acceptance.
So, in case anybody was thinking this was a small thing, this is not a small thing. This is essentially saying that as of June 4th, we are stopping the list of private ways. I will give the board a couple of options, or at least one other option, which is, do we want to release this list first and allow for some public comment prior to the vote, since we haven't had legal counsel yet?
no, I don't think so. No. I mean, there's the superintendent sitting right over there.
Yep.
Ask him how badly his machinery and stuff is being destroyed by plowing all these roads. And if we had, and I'm not gonna list the names that I know that are coming down the road for extension of this road and that road, which is gonna be a private road, to add them onto this list. It shouldn't happen.
And the board could certainly review this annually and update the list if necessary, or keep the list as is.
So a person, an owner, would have to petition to be added to
I
it.
think there could be a request that comes forward to the board. I think that would be a local mechanism. The statute doesn't govern that.
Gary, looking
Yeah,
at,
can we see the statute, see what it says?
Gary, Gary,
I can
looking at,
actually read it. It's not that long.
looking at this list, what's the newest private way? We have miles and we have a name, and they're numbered, I assume, actually, they're numbered by alphabetic order. Is there anything that is a very new private way here? When was the last time do you know what I mean? You know where I'm headed, right?
Yeah, I'm
Right,
just trying to
that
think
clear.
of all the private ways, it's just remained private ways forever. It's,
Okay.
I don't see anything on here that's new.
You see this?
No, I don't either, but.
So who plows Cool Sandy now?
We
for
do.
example? We've been doing it.
Yeah.
So how does this change things?
It doesn't change it at all.
Sandy's not on here.
Okay, so
Well,
the,
these towns,
would you like,
would you
just,
say is
it's a
the
very
road?
short
Those are
paragraph, the statute.
Yeah.
so-called roads.
I'm going to read the statute that a city or town which accepts this section in the manner provided in section 6D, which was by ballot vote, may appropriate money for the removal of snow and ice from such private ways within its limits and open to the public use as may be designated by the city council or selectmen, provided that for the purposes of section 25 of chapter 84, the removal of snow and ice from such a way shall not constitute a repair of a way. There's actually a separate statute that governs road repairs.
So you're not setting a precedent by being kind, I guess.
The only precedent being set here is that the board has never actually voted the list of private ways.
And voting the private, sorry. Voting the private ways would say that these are the private ways that the town will continue to remove snow and ice on, but no additional can be added.
Yes.
Is-
That's,
Without petitioning
that's
the
right.
board.
This
Correct.
limits,
Right.
this limits it, and if the board is
locks it in.
petitioned at some point later to add something, the board can take it up.
But to your question,
Yeah.
we have had multiple years where certain private roads are simply not in the condition to handle our equipment, and they are breaking our equipment.
So, quick question, so of the 30 ways listed here, your shop currently plows all of them?
All of them,
All of them?
all of them.
So nothing is added here, we're just locking it in, saying, okay, this is what we'll,
This is the full list of private ways that you're currently plowing, the full list.
So for,
That were added. To Skip's comment, there are a couple added that people are looking how to get that
In which case,
accepted
they come to
however
the
they
board
do
to
as a private
request,
way.
to make requests.
so, for the record, are the 30. Apache Trail, Athens Avenue, Cedar Avenue, Dakota Trail, Edith Lane, Edson Ave Extension, Finn Park, Frontage Road, Helen Ave, Hope Way, Johnson Way, Karen Way, Costa Ave, Lewis Street, Maple Spring Drive, Meadowbrook Circle, Nichols Way, Oak Way, Aniata Trail, which is listed twice.
Because it's down both sides
Down
of the
two
road.
sides. Pequot Trail, Peters Ave, Phillips Drive, Pine Way, Powell Trail, Stevens Way, Sunset Trail, Turkey Hill Trail, Victoria Ave, and Wilson Way, for a total of 4.374 miles. So,
You look at that Anianta Way, isn't it two different roads?
It is.
Two different spellings.
no, not on this list. On IOTA. One is .07, one is .05.
Okay.
What if these private roads get in such horrible condition we can't plow them?
They have.
We,
They have.
we signed this, and we're agreeing to plow them forever.
They have. We had, and Skip will remember, and she'll remember, because we dealt with a neighborhood of privates 8, 9 years ago, and the whole neighborhood showed up. And it was in disrepair. I had more equipment breakdowns that year than we've ever had. But their order was, and my recommendation was, it was so bad that it is up to them to bring those roads up to snuff so they are plowable, because we can't repair them.
We do
Well,
have,
They wouldn't do that, but
yeah.
due to the outpouring of the neighborhoods, I was still required to plow.
So we do have recourse, which Margaret referenced briefly in the other MGL that references repairs.
Right.
But we have never pursued that legally with those residents.
But you all have recourse by what was voted on town meeting floor, I want to say 67 or 68, that we can stop, and that was part of that meeting with that neighborhood, that we can stop snow and ice removal until such time as the roads are brought up to snuff.
I don't have that statute, so I don't know that.
Right?
And this statute allows for the appropriation to be made for the snow and ice removal. So just to be clear, it references an appropriation being made by the town for the snow and ice removal.
But
So,
is it subject to appropriation? If the town doesn't
yes.
vote the, okay. Okay, so.
Oh, sorry, I have one more question. To Wayne's point, if we vote on this, then this locks us in and these will always have to be plowed?
no, I think that the board could actually review this annually.
Okay.
Or even more frequently. It doesn't give any kind of timeline to how frequently you do that. This just memorializes the list as it stands today.
Right now?
still subject to legal sufficiency by
Yes,
town council,
exactly,
right?
exactly.
Can we ask what Gary wants on this?
Excuse me?
What's your preference on this?
My preference on that, well, that list is what it is. My preference is due to the cost for the rest of the taxpayers in town, my preference is that entire list be brought up to snuff. Now, believe it or not, there's a couple of roads in there that were paved and catch basins installed, that we plow that are still private, and they're not even under the MassDOT inventory. My preference is, but some of those are just horrendous, Jeff. If you ever go around, I don't know if I brought you around, Wayne, I know I brought Skip around, they're just horrendous. We'll send the plow down there, we can't even touch the shoulders because it's just so worn and narrow. We've also, because they're so narrow and the way people park cars on them, we've actually had to, believe it or not, hit a car to get through there. But we're not responsible for the damage. That's a private way. We're not responsible for any of the damage that happens down there. Folks don't, and then they also have to understand that still, they're private ways, and we have to take care of every public roadway and town buildings and school facility before we touch even if we get a 2-foot snowstorm, we have to take care of the town first, so we have to stay on that. And we get calls like you read about.
So,
If the board would like to hold on this till your next meeting, we can get feedback from legal counsel, we could certainly do that.
People may want to be heard, too.
Well, I think this might be the first step, Gary, to a lot of steps, which is revisiting the level of these roads. I mean, we could basically take this list and have you grade the roads A through F, come back and say, okay, what do we need to do here to assist these residents? Because, to Jeff's point, they will show up en masse if they think something is changing in the amount of service that they're getting. And the first thing they say is, we are taxpayers.
Yes.
And our roads should be paved. And there's flaws to that argument, but that's not the point.
the biggest point is, we know
We know.
there's more roads coming down,
Yeah.
more people coming
Yeah.
forward with private roads.
And I don't,
And we've got to stop.
yeah.
They're gonna put them in, and they're gonna put 6, 8, 10 houses on them, and
Yep.
we're gonna get stuck plowing if we don't. We've gotta stop it now. We've gotta stop adding more roads to the private roads, make them so that they're state-approved roads, and do the roads the way they're supposed to be done. Not just throw some gravel down and say, hey, we're gonna put a bunch of houses up.
I think probably the best example of this is the issue that we're having, and you guys saw it at town meeting, where we have people coming petitioning to accept roads that aren't ready. And then in the absence of this list, there is an argument that we are then required to plow them, despite the fact that they haven't been brought up to the state standard that they were supposed to be based on planning board requirements. So, yeah, I mean, I think Skip makes a really good point.
We had a big fight with what's his name over in the hills, when they wouldn't plow those roads.
I do think this is a safe first step. I just don't know that we could stop here. I'm gonna keep looking at you because you're still with us.
Oh, this is a start.
Right.
So it stops as of tonight, adding to it, and then it will go from there. I mean, I'm sorry, I just can't see us going down this road.
No pun intended.
The road.
And I think, Jeff, to your point, certainly within the motion, there could be,
Changes to come.
well, no, just a method of petitioning to have a road added, but they would have to petition to the board.
Also, through the chair, Sheila, we don't get any state aid funding for private roads, as everybody knows. So my recommendation for you, Jeff, would be to have, not the town, but those roads be brought up to snuff to be accepted on the MassDOT road inventory list at the expense of others, not the town. Also, because if you add them to the inventory list, now you're eligible for more monies coming in on a yearly basis through Chapter 90. And I believe because, and Dick, you can probably correct me if I'm wrong, I'm sure you will, but you can build that road to the footprint it's in now. You don't have to make it a 50-foot wide road or a 26-foot, you build it to that footprint. But it's gotta be stable.
Yeah, and then that's part of that longer conversation. If the residents in those areas are willing to go that next step, do the homework and do the work and pay for the work, so that in the long run, they don't have to go through these issues anymore.
Should that be part of the motion tonight?
Well, I don't think we're gonna have a motion tonight. I think we have to wait for
council.
Yeah.
some legal opinions first.
Okay, so what?
I'm just with Skip, that, how many times have I asked you, please,
Yeah.
about this.
Well, we all agree, but it's 2 more weeks.
I think you should put the stop on this right now and
Yeah.
through councils. I mean, stop it right now. No more added after. I know of 3 that'll be in here tomorrow morning saying, oh, I got a private way. I got a private road. And you guys are going, I want it added.
Somebody was asking me about another one too, for Carolyn, so I'm very nervous, very nervous.
Well, our agenda was posted, and this document is public. And again, we're not closing the door completely, but we are creating a process by which this is our list. And if you want to add to it, you need to petition for it.
And there's not gonna be any snow plowing for the next 2 weeks.
No.
We
sure
hope.
not.
I think we're good.
Yeah, but in 2 weeks, there could be 4 different people come in for, hey, do whatever you want to do, but this should be stopped tonight. Address it, fix it any way you want. After tonight, dress it up, make it look whatever you want, but no more roads added to this list as of tonight. I mean, if not,
I thought the statute takes care of that.
No,
no, it
it
doesn't.
absolutely does
No,
not.
it doesn't.
And that's Margaret's point. We have never taken this step,
No.
and so we've left ourselves open to what we're starting to see, which is unapproved roads who suddenly are private roads. We're not getting any money for them, and yet we're still required to take care of them.
Yep.
Okay,
Okay, was that a motion by Skip?
that was not a motion, but I would entertain a motion.
Go ahead.
Subject to legal counsel, okay. The
Okay.
motion is.
A motion is to stop, no more names added to the this list that we have in front of us until we get confirmation from our attorneys.
So an approval of the list of private ways as presented,
Right.
Pending legal
Subject to
counsel.
legal.
subject to
okay.
legal
Subject to
review.
legal.
Okay, do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Is there any more discussion? No. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Like,
Skip?
Thank you.
Of course.
Aye, unanimous. Okay. Streamlined permitting state contract. Hopefully this is easier.
This is very easy.
Excellent news.
This is very easy. I just need the board to authorize Sheila to sign as the chief executive officer to allow both me, I've listed Sheila second as the chair of the Board of Selectmen as authorized signatories on the grant. That's all we need.
So moved.
second.
Discussion?
So Sheila just needs to sign the bottom.
All right.
Just hand it to Sheila, tell her to sign her name.
That one spot, Sheila. I
All in
signed
favor?
That's it.
Aye.
Aye.
Done.
Aye, unanimous. So just so everybody knows, this is an $18,800 grant through CCC, Community Compact Cabinet, to hopefully get us some fantastic new streamlined permitting, which we desperately need.
How did this grant come about, Margaret? Was that you?
Yes,
Thank you.
you're welcome.
Thank you, thank
Good
you.
work, Margaret.
Thank you.
Thank you to Margaret. Okay. Let's just get this out of the way first. Again, out of order, the DCR Land Acquisition Notice, which we
Yes.
talked about last meeting,
Yes.
and we've had clarification, yeah?
Yep, I did. I had Terry French from DCR come in and visit me in my office to confirm that as part of the closing, the town's back taxes will have to be paid. So what I've done, Becky was kind enough to provide us the owner balance on the back taxes. Shelter Island Fund owes the town $15,115.40. So rather than the board just signing that they announced DCR was considering acquiring a property and approving the waiver of a 120-day period, I did a form of motion for the board to vote that would be attached to the notices. And the form of motion would be, whereas the land on River Road under DCR's consideration is owned by Shelter Island Fund and is identified as parcels 50B 20.1, 50B 20.2, 50B 20.3, 50B 20.4 on the town of Rutland's assessor's map, and whereas the town's treasurer collector has reported that all 4 of the parcels are in tax title with a total $15,115.40 current balance due as shown on the attached owner balance statement dated June 4th, 2018. Now therefore, the Board of Selectmen directs that the tax title balance due to the town of Rutland must be paid in its entirety to the town upon the closing of the property transaction between DCR and Shelter Island Fund. And this is going to be included with the notices.
Motion as Margaret read.
Second.
Second, and if I could have an addition to that motion, Abby, that we are announcing pursuant to 301 CMR 51.0, that the Commonwealth, acting through its DCR, is considering the acquisition of 11.81 acres of land on River Road owned by Shelter Island Fund to be managed under the Quabbin Land Management Plan guidelines. Yep. I had a second. Is there any discussion?
Nope.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Second to that.
Jeff, second?
Jeff seconded
Did you
it?
second?
Oh my God, I don't
I
know.
will second, I'd be happy to. Thank you.
Okay, and I'm gonna have the board sign that letter to DCR. Get our money.
Pay us.
It started last time, so just put your name there, too.
Thank you, Becky.
Okay, board goals and objectives. After we're done signing, you have this nice, big, legal-size, 3-page sheet in front of you.
So I've combined all the responses into short-term policy objectives, and then the final page is a few long-term policy objectives. I added target completion dates to those that I had put in. The board can certainly review those and change them as necessary.
So, I'm not interested in putting anybody on the spot tonight, but is there any interest in more time to review this and/or add things? It was pretty extensive.
So
I
for-
would like a little more time. I've been seriously busy the past couple of weeks, so.
So Wayne, I sent a spreadsheet with a tab for you to fill in whichever ones you want. So for the public's information, there are categories under, there are categories labeled fiscal management, capital, buildings and infrastructure, economic and community development, citizen engagement and communication, municipal operations and governance, and regionalization and shared services. So the board is plugging in goals and objectives that it would like to see, that it would like to have accomplished over the next year, and then long-term goals and objectives over the next number of fiscal years.
So just for the board's note, you'll see bolded on the larger document that we have a lot of committees to talk about. Some of them would be ad hoc, some would be extended. Some of them are things we've been talking about for a long time, but it's really time to start putting the pencil to paper on them. That would be things like the Senior Center Planning Task Force. Some are things that have required change for some time. It's probably time to get them the way they need to be. That would be the General Bylaw Review Committee. A couple of them are actually fun. Rutland, the 300th Anniversary Committee, it's probably time to start talking about that, as crazy as that sounds. 2022 is not that far away. And obviously tonight we just heard another one where we're gonna need a Stormwater Committee, so we should probably add that right now. I think Margaret had already added that in her list.
Another one that's going to be happening sooner rather than later would be the creation of the Managed Growth Steering Committee to go along with Phase 2 of the Managed Growth study.
So I think to Margaret's point about the whole work session retreat, which would be us essentially setting a schedule for ourselves for this year. You know, and of course, that can be done in open session, but just better around a table than this thing.
And this will provide a guide for
yeah.
that discussion.
And so let's, I know Wayne, you asked for more time, so now that we've seen all this, you've heard tonight from Fred and from Hillary, from Gary a little bit. Why don't we figure out that date and move forward, and we'll get this finalized. So I think the ideal thing here would be to be able to release this for the start of our fiscal year, or close to it, maybe right after 4th of July.
We're not gonna release this. This is a work product, right?
This is a work document, but, you know, as with most of the things here in the meeting, we can certainly release the final product and the schedule that we've set for ourselves if we want.
I'd like to, I guess, revise
Okay.
before anything gets released on what I submitted.
Great.
Sure. So over the next 2 weeks then, just take some time and look over what others have put in and add your own and just build the list.
Margaret, did this get sent out to department heads, or did they have any input?
I have not sent it out to department heads yet, no. Now, these are policy objectives, policy goals and objectives. I'm happy to get their feedback, but they're more administrative operational, so
Okay.
maybe they have some ideas. I'm happy to send it.
One thing I wondered at some point down the road is if the board can have a working meeting similar to our retreat idea with the department heads and just have that everybody at the same table at the same time, whether it's probably quarterly is overkill, but biannually or something more than have it focused only on budget, but also in addition to budget, kind of the administration policy, how all of that can work.
You have a couple of options with that. Obviously, as town administrator, one of the roles she has is to run department head meetings. It's possible that we could be invited to that meeting as guests.
Absolutely.
And then the other thing we could do is rotate through who the department heads are that come to these meetings. So on an invitational basis, you know, we rarely see Kerry here from the library, and yet Gary's always here, and fire and police are almost always here, and so we don't necessarily see everybody. We could go either way with that.
And I was thinking maybe it's overkill, but have everybody in the same room at the same time.
Ah,
That's not a bad idea.
Is what my vision was.
Okay.
But maybe that's probably a scheduling nightmare. But
I'll add it to your.
I think I kind of had it
Okay.
as a blurb in there, but it probably wasn't as clearly communicated as that.
I think that would have to be daytime.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Margaret, you're up.
I'm up.
Yep.
The last thing.
It really
All right,
is.
so, board members, as you know, I've submitted my notice of resignation. A very, very tough decision for me, but I think it's best for me as I start looking at closing out my career in the next however many years, and can I just read my letter? It'd just be
Yes, just
easier.
read it.
Okay. Dear board members and Rutland community, I respectfully submit my resignation from my position effective July 31st, 2018. I'm willing to continue through the month of August in a very part-time capacity, 8 hours per week, including biweekly board meetings, in order to help during the transition period. I will also continue to be a ready resource for the new town administrator when he or she arrives. It was an honor to have been selected as Rutland's first ever town administrator in the spring of 2015, and I'm extremely proud to have recently celebrated my 30-year anniversary of my career in public service, nearly all of which has been dedicated to frontline municipal service. I will now return to my roots in Amherst, where my public service career began and where I intend to eventually close it out. Over the past 3 years, the town of Rutland has built a solid foundation relative to financial, labor, planning, and many other best sustainable practices, and has discovered its ability to envision the future. As the town's leading executive public body, the Board of Selectmen is responsible for cohesively leading the town by its establishment of townwide policies, goals, and objectives. Further, the Select Board and all other appointing authorities should consistently rely on and empower the strong team of professional employees it has hired to perform the day-to-day administrative and operational work needed to carry out the town's policies. Finally, as you well know, the responsibility of encouraging and guiding civil, respectful dialogue rests squarely with the community's leaders. I hope that the example set by our elected and appointed leaders, what a great meeting tonight too, will reflect positively on the tone of future public discussions and will thereby strengthen the community. I have a couple of recommendations. I recommend that the board advertise the town administrator position with the Mass Municipal Association immediately, tomorrow, with a resume submission deadline of Monday, June 25th. Starting salary to be determined by the board, I suggested $100,000. It could be negotiable based on qualifications and experience. And I recommend that a small resume screening team be formed to review all submitted resumes for the position the week of June 25th, and that interviews be scheduled the following week. I'm willing to participate in this process if the board would like me to. I've provided a draft job ad that could go in the MMA online, with the MMA online, tomorrow. It's fairly comprehensive, but let me know if you'd like to tweak it in any way. And again, this decision was extremely hard for me. I just hope that the town has the foundation it needs to continue to move forward.
Well, I thank you very much, Margaret, for being here and doing what you've done for us already.
Thank you. Thank you. You're welcome.
For the public, I'll have to say one thing that I really am impressed is your open door policy. I think that is one thing I would like to see in future administrator. And I have to thank you for the number of times I've come in and board on you a lot of things, and you helped me. Thank you. I appreciate it.
You're welcome. And I thank everybody for working with me and for adjusting to the what was a brand new administrative chain of command in town, and I think that the town's on the right track.
So-
And I thank you, and so do your department heads.
Thank you. Okay.
So, as I said to Margaret, and I feel like I essentially had one good day, and then I got the call. I think these are going to be very big shoes to fill. I really cannot impress upon, in particular the two of you, how much Margaret fixed, how many fires she has had to put out, how far she has taken us in the very short time she has been here, and I wish it could have been a little longer. I know she has us on the right road, but we have a lot of balls in the air, and we have a lot of irons in the fire, and whatever other phrase anybody wants to come up with. And I think this is going to be a challenge for us to get through. I completely agree with her. We need to start this process very quickly. We don't have her for very long. It's possible that in the next couple of weeks, depending on what we see, we might have to talk about an interim, which is not ideal considering, again, how much activity we have going on. This is not a job for somebody who's just looking to keep a chair warm and keep the lights on.
I'm going to be attending my last annual meeting of my administrators organization this Thursday, and I'm going to make the announcement there, and I'm going to circulate the job description and the job posting, and I will welcome any of my colleagues who might be interested to talk with me about it, about possibly moving over here, and
I appreciate that.
Thank
Thank
Yeah.
you, Margaret.
Thank
And, you know, to Margaret's point about civil and respectful dialogue, I think we have a long way to go. And for anything that we need to do to apologize for some of the things that you've had to put up with in recent history, I think we owe her that, and hopefully we can keep going with where she's gotten us headed, and certainly try to live up to the standard that Amherst sets, which, yeah, it's hard to say no to Amherst. They are very lucky to have her. Does anyone have anything else?
Motion to adjourn.
Do I have a second?
Sadly.
Second.
All in favor? Adjourned.